Let's be honest, Christian faith is not just a personal thing, it's also political. In this video, I'm going to cover 10 things that you can't or shouldn't do politically if you're faithful to Jesus' teachings. So the first is promoting violence or war. Jesus' teachings are very clear throughout the Bible. He advocates for non-violence and peace. In the Sermon on the Mount, he instructed his followers to turn the other cheek, suggesting a stance of non-retaliation and forgiveness over vengeance or violence. Similarly, when Jesus was arrested before his crucifixion, he told Peter to put away his sword, saying, "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword." This implies a rejection of violence as a means to resolve conflicts. So in a political context, this would mean strongly opposing war, promoting peace-building efforts, and seeking non-violent solutions to disputes. The second is that you shouldn't neglect the poor or the needy. Central to Jesus' teachings is a profound concern for the poor and marginalised. This is evident in numerous passages throughout the Bible, such as Beatitudes, where he declares, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Additionally, in the parable of the sheep and the goats, Jesus identifies himself with the needy, suggesting that serving them is akin to serving him. So politically, this means that there should be a call to support policies and actions that aid the poor, that fight poverty, that help provide for basic needs, and strive for economic justice. The third point is that you should not engage in dishonesty or corruption. Honesty and integrity are key virtues in Christian teachings, and Jesus often condemned hypocrisy and deceit. For instance, Jesus criticized the Pharisees and their hypocrisy, emphasizing the importance of truthfulness and sincerity, as covered in Matthew chapter 23 verses 27 and 28. In the context of political activity, this means avoiding deceptive practices, promoting transparency and accountability in governance, and of course resisting corruption and bribery. Upholding truth and integrity in public life aligns with the Christian call to be honest and just in all dealings. The fourth point is that you shouldn't promote hatred or discrimination. Jesus' teachings consistently emphasize love, acceptance, and forgiveness, which stand in opposition to hatred and discrimination. The commandment to love your neighbour as yourself is a central tenet of his teachings, encompassing all individuals, regardless of their background, ethnicity, or beliefs. This is exemplified in the parable of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus uses the example of a Samaritan, a group often despised by the Jews of that time, to illustrate what it means to show love and compassion without discrimination. Politically, this principle would advocate against policies or rhetorics that foster division, prejudice, or inequality, and would promote inclusivity, equality, and respect for all people. The fifth point is that you should not neglect environmental stewardship. While Jesus' direct teachings don't specifically address environmental issues, the broader Christian doctrine, which includes teachings from both the Old and New Testament, does emphasize stewardship of the earth. For instance, the concept of stewardship in Genesis suggests that humans have a responsibility to care for our world. This can be interpreted as a call for sustainable practices and policies that protect the environment. Christians might see environmental degradation as a violation of the stewardship entrusted to humanity, advocating for actions that preserve and respect the natural world around us. And the sixth point is that you should not support the death penalty. The teachings of Jesus, particularly those around mercy and forgiveness, can be interpreted as being in opposition to the death penalty. In the story of the adulterous woman, Jesus prevents her execution by saying, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." This passage is often cited as evidence of Jesus' stance against capital punishment, emphasizing forgiveness over retribution. Politically, this would clearly translate into the opposition of the death penalty, advocating for life imprisonment or rehabilitation over execution, and focusing on the potential for redemption and transformation, even in those who have committed the most heinous crimes. The seventh point is that you should not accumulate excessive wealth at the expense of others. Jesus spoke often about the dangers of wealth and its potential to distract from spiritual and moral priorities. One of the most famous examples is when Jesus said, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." This suggests that we should be cautious against the pursuit of wealth, especially when it leads to immoral behaviours or the exploitation of others. In a political context, this could mean advocating for economic policies that promote a fairer distribution of resources, publicly opposing exploitative practices, and ensuring that meeting the basic needs of all people is a priority. The eighth point is that we should not fail to show compassion to immigrants and refugees. Christian teachings emphasize the importance of hospitality and compassion towards strangers and those in need. For example, the Hebrew Bible, which Jesus would have known, instructs, "When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you should not do him wrong." In the New Testament, Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan also teaches the importance of helping those from different backgrounds. Politically, this suggests supporting policies that are welcoming to immigrants and refugees, providing aid and protection to those fleeing hardship or persecution, and helping immigrants to integrate into society. The next point is that you should not engage in exploitative labour practices. The Christian faith emphasises the dignity of labour and the fair treatment of workers. The Epistle of James, for instance, criticises those who exploit their workers, stating, "The wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you." This implies a moral obligation to treat workers justly, provide fair wages, and ensure humane working conditions. In terms of political action, this translates to advocating for labour rights, supporting fair trade practices, and opposing policies and practices that do exploit workers. And finally, the 10th point is that you should not support any policies that harm families or children. The welfare of families and children is a recurrent theme in Jesus' teachings. He showed special care for children, as seen in passages like Matthew 19:14, which states, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." This suggests that policies and actions should protect and nurture children and families, and rightfully so. Politically, this could be reflected in supporting specific initiatives that promote child welfare, family stability, education, healthcare, and policies that protect children from abuse, neglect, or exploitation.